have our lightning round talks to help inspire you guys in 10 minutes or less. First up, we have Jessica Saia, who's our visual producer at the Bold Italic, and she's going to be talking about viral content. Jessica.
Creating something that is radically new is a really good way to create viral content. It's also really hard. Like, it's hard to do once, it's hard to do over and over again, and as a visual producer at the Bold Italic, I've come up with a couple strategies that make it easier so that I'm not starting from scratch every time. The one that I think is really effective, and the one that I'm going to talk about today, is what I call visual satire. This approach, the formula for this, is basically taking a cliche or a trend or something that just is overly saturated in some realm of the internet and giving it some weird twist or pushing it to some extreme. And when you do that, I think you come up with something that's just new enough. One realm that is just jam-packed with these cliches to kind of spoof on is food. One of the first pieces that I produced for the Bold Italic was called Corner Store May, which was basically thinking about all those like really gorgeous food pictures, like the ones with the really shallow depths of field, and they're just plated perfectly, and thinking, wouldn't it be funny to like make images that were just as beautiful but out of really disgusting food? So I asked my roommate, who is a chef, to beautifully plate a 6-course meal made entirely out of food that we got at our corner store. So we had an amuse-bouche, which has a Frito scoop in there. The main course was seared Spam with a flamin' hot Cheeto salsa verde. And then the dessert was an ice cream dish that's a Red Bull reduction, and there are some Airhead florets. Which this one was actually really good, so I tried them all, and some of them were just like really bad. But in this way, this is taking a visual trend and giving it a twist, but you can do this with all kinds of things. For example, a really overly used hashtag. So for actual food porn, I took the food porn hashtag that is just all over Instagram and just thought, like, if you want food porn, I can give you food porn. So I hired a videographer to work with me to create a video that pushed this hashtag to its like most literal interpretation. So we took the classic like pizza delivery guy porno plot and made it entirely acted out with food. And so while we're in the lowbrow section of my examples, we're going to just skip right ahead to dramatic portraits of dogs pooping, which was a hit, you know? And this is an example of taking that visual satire formula and giving it to a contributor to kind of shape their pitch. There was a nature photographer that emailed me and asked if we needed any wildlife photos on the site. And I was like, no. But if you can come up with some like twist, like, let me know. And he was like, well, I can't believe I'm suggesting this, but what if I took nature photos of dogs pooping in the city? And I was like, yes, do that, it's perfect. So he did, and they turned out really good. I don't know if you can really tell, you can't catch it, but go back. No, I would go forward. Okay, so this one, and I live by the park, and I've seen this dog, and I'm just like, oh my, does this person know that like, their dog is famously pooping on the internet? But moving on from world of fashion, also a good place that's just ripe with our events team asked me to produce something that would like promote a men's fashion event that we were doing. And so instead of going the street style route or anything normal like that, I thought about the do's and don'ts trope that's really prevalent in fashion, and thought, yeah, we could push that to some like weird nonsense level that nobody would ever do. And so then the do's, don'ts, and oh god, please don'ts of men's fashion was born, which included highlights such as the extremely deep V and inverse cutout shorts, which like actually inspired someone, and they emailed me and they were like, yeah, I made these. But this was a really cool one because we were able to take this like extreme don't formula and kind of turn it into a template that we could use over and over again. So we did it for riding the BART, and we did it for eating sushi, and it's just it's nice as a publication to have a tool that you can like keep going back to, and so when something is a success, it's nice to look at it and think like, all right, could this be replicated, or is it just going to be beaten into the ground? One example that was a hit turned into a series was our kid food reviews, which was born out of thinking of just restaurant reviews as something that people take really seriously, and thinking, what if we just had like a really picky eater review these instead of a professional? And then it was like, wait, like a kid for sure, better than an adult. So our photographer, Isla, and I take little 4-year-olds to fancy restaurants and take pictures of them trying the food. Which, this is nice because not only are we able to replicate it and like do it over and over and have this regular segment that we can keep coming back to, but it's an example of something that has been able to build over time. So we've been able to get, like our French laundry one, which I cannot believe they let us do, was like the most successful thing we've ever posted, which it wasn't even the first time we had done that, so that was cool. But so looking at these examples all together, I think that what makes this approach work so much, I think it's a lot of reasons. I think it makes brainstorming a lot easier. And I think it lets you like tap into this phenomenon that's already on the internet, and it already has these established roads and places out there that your content can then travel on and stick to and stand out in. Publications get really eager to pick this kind of thing up, and people really want to share it in this kind of like, oh my god, have you seen this kind of way? Or in my personal favorite, the why does this exist kind of way, which anytime I see that sentiment in the comments section, I'm just like, success, like good. Because if somebody is surprised or questioning why something is on the internet, I think you know that you've hit that sweet spot of content that is new enough.
How to make videos go viral. Over here you see Captain Crunch, you see Rocky and Bullwinkle. The question is, what do they have to do with each other? The story is, in the 1960s, basically kids, they did some research, found out that they didn't want mushy, milky cereal. So the guy from Captain Crunch went to the founder of Rocky and Bullwinkle, Jay Ward, and said, hey, make me a brand. Make me a cool box that people are going to like. Make me a commercial, and let's build a business. And that's basically the relationship. So they start off with the cereal, Kane built a brand, and the rest is history. Captain Crunch is one of the biggest cereals in the world. And the reason why I'd say this story is because in the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, what really mattered was not so much how good of a product you had, but basically, you know, how much money do you have, how much TV ad spend do you have, how good at branding you are. And times have really changed. TV is dying, and if you look at millennials, 1 in 3 millennials basically watch no online video, only online video, no broadcast TV. So this is a huge shift, massive change in our world today. And where they're watching it and what they're watching is really YouTube, and they're watching on their mobile devices. So 50% of video watches are now on YouTube. So what does this all mean? TV's dying, people are watching online videos on their phones. The good news is that YouTube and viral imagination is free media. So it's no longer money. Money is no longer the barrier. So if you have a good idea and you're a good marketer and you understand how YouTube and some of these systems work, you could actually make sort of a video go viral, a product go viral, whatever it is. And because media is free, but attention is not, you need a different sort of ad because it's a different sort of audience. So I'm going to talk a bit about how do you create an ad, how do you create that video, and how do you systematically do it. So here's the formula for winning at YouTube. The first thing is you need a spreadable idea, and actually the past speakers spoke a bit about that. How many people here know about Epic Mealtime? Raise your hand. Cool. So Epic Mealtime, basically for people who don't know, actually sort of grew up with these guys where I'm from in Montreal, Canada. And the idea was, how do we create the most disgusting, high caloric foods possible? Think like a fried hamburger that's like this big, and then put that in like a fried pig, and then put that in like a fried turkey, and then put it on these big buns and eat it with some maple syrup on top and some bacon, of course. They became one of the largest YouTube channels in the world, making 7-8 figures a year just by selling cookware and creating this brand. And this, the reason why I use them as an example is it challenges the norm. It gets people to share, and that's the stuff you've got to create if you want to win in video. So, a couple of key points here. First of all, assume that the viewer has the attention span of an espresso-crazed fruit fly. People do not want to watch, 90 minutes, 60 minutes. It has to be quick cuts, fast. But length doesn't matter. If a 10-second video work, and a good example is Vice videos. 20-minute videos are just they challenge the status quo. They're quick. They're targeted towards Gen Y. They're shareable. That could work as well. Challenge the status quo, and keep in mind you're not shooting an ad. Don't be pushing, don't be pushing your product. Don't be pushing it. You're shooting value-added content, not an ad. The second thing you need is what I call lighter fluid, and I'll explain what that is. How many of you seen the double rainbow video? Okay, so most of you. So for the people who haven't seen it, basically some guy in, I think, the Midwest sees two rainbows, completely freaks out. He's like, well, there's 2 rainbows, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. But the cool thing about it, if you look at it, it took about 1 year for the video to actually get views. Not many people know this. So the question, obviously, that you're probably asking yourselves is, what happened between the time from the video uploaded to the time where the video, quote-unquote, went viral? And the answer is Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel found the video, talked about it on his show, and that was the lighter fluid, that was the ignition that basically made the video go viral. So the question is for you guys, when you're creating a video campaign, first, it's like, okay, like it's challenging the status quo. It's something that's going to get people to share. Second is, how do you get influencers? I mean, obviously you can't always get Jimmy Kimmel, but like C tier, B tier, sort of celebrities or micro influencers to endorse your video, share it to their communities, and create a systematic way for literally a small budget, $2,000, $3,000 max, to get this out there. You need that lighter fluid. The analogy I use sometimes is the best songs aren't on the Billboard 100. A lot of the times it's songs that are just being pushed by labels. So just because you have a great video, just because the formula is there for the great video, don't forget about that influencer marketing, and do not forget about that lighter fluid. And that's pretty much it. I put my email there if anyone has any questions on video. Download my app 5x, which is the best videos in one place, of course, Android or iOS. And thank you for your time.
Our last lightning speaker is Lexi, is it Nisita? From Refinery 29, which if you care about fashion, you already know a lot about the site. Thanks, Lexi.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I broke it. Hello, I'm going to stand on my tiptoes. Okay, so just really quick, I'll tell you a little bit about Refinery 29. Hopefully some of you guys know about us already. We are a platform for millennial women about ages 18 to 35, but a lot on both sides. And we cover pretty much everything that women today are interested in. So, we started as fashion and beauty, and since then we've grown, we've got science, wellness, health, fitness, entertainment, news, politics, all kinds of stuff. And because we have such breadth of coverage, we spend a lot of time thinking about, what are the sort of rules and principles of success that we can pull from all of our different topics that will apply across the board. So what I want to talk about today, just as we just heard a little bit about this idea of virality, okay? I know it's such an outmoded term at this point, probably all sick of hearing about it. Anybody who goes to a conference like this, it's like shareability, virality, always the topic of conversation. But I think that there's a question that's not being asked here a lot that I want to ask today, which is there a difference between a true viral moment, like the videos that we just heard about, the double rainbow type thing, and the kind of stuff that publishers can try and engineer and create on their own? My answer to that is yes, because if you look at a true viral video, or not just a video, but any kind of a story that really blows up, you're going to notice a few things in common. So it's going to be low budget. It's going to be kind of gritty. It's going to be very realistic. Usually it's something that happened at the user level that's very, very grassroots and grows from there. There are exceptions to that rule for sure. Something like that might be the Dove Real Beauty campaign, for example, something that went viral that was brand created. But most of the time, viral content is something that starts as a real story. And that, there's no hint of marketing to it. The example that I have pulled up here is the random acts of pasta that was just going around a couple days ago that you might have heard about. This is a guy who got the Olive Garden unlimited pasta pass. He took it out on the streets and he started feeding homeless people using the unlimited pasta. Obviously, there's a lot that's shareable there. It's a positive emotion. It's right around Thanksgiving. What a coincidence. It's a really beautiful thing. And there's not a clear agenda there. Now, there's been some speculation that Olive Garden actually was behind this video, unconfirmed, but I think that even if they were, it was really done right in the sense that it's very subtle. If there is any branding to it, it's really not the clear agenda behind it, and it's very, it comes from that organic level. Now, obviously, there's so much volume around stories like this, there's so much engagement and so much excitement that brands understandably want to try and recreate that with content that makes sense with their voice, that has that strong sort of brand filter, that POV. Is that possible? I think that yes, but you have to understand the difference between a true viral video and a lab-created viral moment. So the way that we've tried to approach that, because we do have sort of a very strong brand filter, we have a very high standard for what our content looks like and what the tone is, and we can't just go out and recreate a video like Random Acts of Pasta, because one, it's going to end up being embarrassing, it looks contrived, and two, it's just not exactly the tone of what our voice is, and I think that's true for a lot of brands out there. So what we've done is tried to identify some of the principles that are behind those types of stories, and sort of bring them up to the abstract and find a way to apply them to other stories, brand stories, original content. So for us, we have this rubric of these what we call shareable buckets. I'm only going to go through a few of them here because we don't have a lot of time, but 3 of what I think are the most important ones. Identity. Okay, so why do you share something? Something appears on your Facebook page or on your Twitter feed. That's a badge of who you are. It says something about you, and like we all do every day when we put our first foot out the door, is we're going to try to look good. We want to look like the best version of ourselves. So it's something, if you share a story on your wall, it makes you look funnier, it makes you look, aware of current social issues, or like you're sort of engaged in a culturally relevant conversation, all things that everybody wants. Second one is life improving. So that is, serviceable stories that are useful and help you achieve some goal. Again, a goal that you think looks good on you, that is a good badge to have on your social profile. but also can be what we call giftable. So, you know, it means if we do a story about, you know, hair drying mistakes that everybody makes, and you just were talking to your friend who's always trying to do a blowout at home and never works, you're going to say, oh, hey, whatever your name is, here's that, we were just talking about this the other day, here's the story, you got to read this. And so it sort of makes you look like this influencer in your own network and an educator. And then third is this sort of, obviously you want to have emotion kind of story, and you want what you can call high arousal emotions. That's not as NSFW as it sounds. There was actually a study done at, I believe it was the Wharton School, where they had people walk on a treadmill while they were reading stories versus people not walking on a treadmill. And they actually found that the people whose heart rate was a little bit up were more likely to share a story. So you want to go after emotions that, well, either you can buy all of your readers a treadmill, not really a great solution, or you can go after emotions that sort of mimic that same thing, right? So anger, righteous anger, or positive emotions like, you know, laughter or nostalgia, or sort of shock in a really crazy, fun way, like we were talking about with the food porn thing, stuff like that. So I'll go through a couple examples of how this works in practice. One thing that worked really, really well for us is the MAC Rocky Horror Picture Show collection. We get a ton of these beauty pictures from brands every day, and you know, how do we decide to pick out the ones that are really going to stand out? Well, in this case, obviously this was a landmark moment for a really popular beauty brand, but it kind of goes beyond that. Okay, so on the one hand, it seems a little bit niche, right? Rocky Horror is kind of like a cult thing, and MAC, you know, if you are someone who really cares about beauty, you're going to be interested in that, but it might not have the same pull as a really popular clothing brand like Zara or H&M or something. But we've really learned, and from experience, to not fear the niche, because if it's a small and passionate audience, they can have just as much power and volume behind them as a bigger audience might have. So, and then the other thing is that, you know, if you think about what does this say about somebody who shares it on their Facebook wall? Okay, Rocky Horror, even all these years later, is still this like really cool alternative subculture that people want to be a part of. I mean, if you guys read The Perks of Being a Wallflower, it's like a book, a YA book that influenced a lot of our audience now when they were younger, and this was a big part of that. And so it's something that they want to be a part of, they want to be involved in that conversation. And because it's sort of this combination of pop culture and beauty, instead of having just either only the people who are interested in pop culture or only the people who are interested in beauty being the audience funnel there, you actually have double the funnel size, because you can share it and your audience will be interested in both people who are from both of those sides of it. Another one, okay, so everybody loves the 90s. If you've ever been on BuzzFeed, you know that every other listicle is about 90s whatever, and I don't know when the 80s turn is going to come, but right now it's still all about that decade. So something that we found here, you know, we didn't want to do just the standard, like, oh, the top 10 best songs of the 90s, because one, that's kind of been everywhere, and two, do you really want to share something that's that basic, not even in the slang way, but just literally basic, on your wall? So what we decided to do here was take a step deeper, do some deep cuts tracks, and, you know, find music that people might really have forgotten about. And so what this shows is, again, it is still that call to action for 90s kids. There's that immediate nostalgia pull that's really emotional and really affects people. That's still there. But again, you're opening up your audience funnel by, you know, you're showing people something that they might, you know, it's a different kind of 90s list, right? So if you're someone who was like in their 20s or 30s in the 90s versus a teenager, you might still be interested in sharing this, because it's like, yeah, you know, I'm cool, I remember these like alternative tracks that other people might not know about. It's not just Britney Spears and stuff. It's, you know, kind of a different, a next level thing. And then it's that intersection of service and entertainment, which kind of has all of those emotions that we were talking about, high arousal emotions, tied into it. So basically, you know, you shouldn't, when you're looking to create something that's viral, that's original content, you shouldn't try to imitate the viral videos that you see on Reddit. All of these examples that I've gone through, they're not like, you know, something that happened that was crazy on Jimmy Fallon last night, or some video that a teenager took in their basement, or like a novelty Twitter account that calls out cats who sent inappropriate Snapchats or something like that. They're original content stories, they're brand stories, they have a strong perspective, but they have all of those elements of virality taken up to the abstract and then reapplied to stories in a way that is shareable and clickable, but still in line with your brand's vision. And that's all.